This is what we are. We are.
I thought I'd do a weird thing and try and periscope the talk and just put it up here and say hello to the people at home. Because my wife and kids were in Barcelona and they had to go home because they're very small children, as you see, but they're very good for using in talks. So thank you, children. Hello. I don't even know if they're watching, it's just for shits and giggles. My name's John. I'd like to talk about metamechanics and working out how the internet works. I'm Scottish, so I will try and speak slowly. I run Smithery in London, which is a strategic design unit. We do things like design strategy, prototyping, culture, stuff. But it's all rooted in this idea of making things people want beats making people want things using the internet and so on. But that's a whole other talk. Jean Tinguely. Does anybody know Jean Tinguely? Oh, yeah. Murmurings. So he was a Swiss artist, sculptor, part of the Parisian avant-garde, signatory of the New Realist Manifesto. And he's probably best known for his kinetic sculptures. So big, moving machines that don't really do anything. There is no purpose to them. There is no point. But they are beautiful to look at. They're beautiful to get lost in, to stare at. And if you stare at them long enough, you see how they work. Because they are conventional machines and sort of like built in space. So we can look at them and go, that's how that works. And we like staring at things to see how they work. It's sort of like if you look at this museum downstairs, if you've not visited the museum, visit the museum. We were there with the kids earlier this week, and that's why the presentation is full of pictures of the kids. Hello at home. I will talk to you more. Coming home soon. So the pointing at staring at things, see how they work, working things out. This is a great museum for this. Sort of like involving people, you push, you prod, you poke, you make something happen, then you stand and you see how it works. We're spotting patterns in repeat behavior. We like this as humans. We like spotting the patterns and going, I wonder if it's going to do that thing again. Is it going to do that thing again? I'm really interested in mechanics of all different types, and especially the mechanics behind sort of like, how does the internet work? So if mechanics is, the Wikipedia definition, the behavior of physical bodies when subjected to forces or displacement, and the subsequent effects of the bodies on their environment, which is a bit dry. I'd rather just describe mechanics for the purposes of this talk, and maybe for the rest of my life, as what happens to things when things happen to them. What happens to things when things happen to them? What makes the internet go round? We're going to have two examples here, two different scales of mechanics, very, very small and very, very big. Firstly, we're going to speak about cards. So at home, I have lots of packs of cards. I've got things like the Charles Eames House of Cards and Ray Eames, which they designed firstly for kids, then they used it in the 1972 IBM exhibition for adults, to basically give people a way to understand what a computer is by building something of all the components. We've got things like the Writer Emergency Kit, one of hundreds and hundreds of Kickstarter-backed things, which are sort of lots of people conveying ideas through the mechanism of cards. Here is a random deck of stuff which you take and then can use. I've got my friend Ola in Sweden makes something called Method Kit, which are sort of a series of different random prompts about what you should think about doing any sorts of different projects from apps to architecture. And I have lots of cards because we make cards as well. It's something that's fallen out the back of the studio almost by accident. We didn't mean we're inadvertently a high-end stationery retailer, which is fine. And essentially, and rather than having content on them, they are blank cards. They're a series of blank cards upon which you can then put ideas. Because we're less interested on the content of the cards. So what's on the cards themselves? Because as soon as you commit something onto cards, and anyone who's ever made a pack of cards in the room will realize this, it's all as soon as you commit something to the cards and then do a run of 500 or 1,000, half of them will be out of time by the time you get around to selling them or using them. So suddenly the sort of like the context of the world changes, especially now. So you're left with a set of cards full of regret that you wish you hadn't printed, that you want to sell off or just get rid of or not use again, because everything changes. What's more interesting about cards is the mechanics, the fact that they are cards in the first place. How they work. You can deal them, shuffle them, order them, stack them, turn them, spread them, rearrange them. You can do whatever you like. How's it getting on in Periscope land? Hello. It's not very good. I realise now, you're now looking at the side of my head and you can't see the things. The card mechanics are about movement. At the heart of all the different things there, it's about movement. How things move. Suddenly just like switching two cards in that set allows you to change the context of what's there. John Wood from Goldsmiths, who came up at dinner in conversation last night, it was quite interesting, has this great thing called the creative quartet. So he talks about synergies. If you have two things, you will have at least one synergy between them. Okay, it's two things, one synergy. If you add another two things, then you don't just get two synergies, you get six. The exponential relationship of every time you add something else onto that pile, if you add another 4 cards, you get 28. If you add another 4 cards on top of that, you get 66. Suddenly creating things using this mechanic means that you can have lots and lots and lots of different combinations. But it's all moving around. You can keep finding new patterns and new things to look at. Paul at Intercom writes, we are currently witnessing a re-architecture of the web, away from pages and destinations towards completely personalized experiences built on an aggregation of many individual pieces of content. That's how we design stuff now, rather than big, long, scrolling web pages where you try and fit every information. When you arrive at a web page, it's an aggregation of many individual pieces of content, which is exactly what a hand of cards is. It's that aggregation of just like, you've just been served something up in the game. When you arrive at Google or Facebook or Twitter, it's giving you things based on behavior, things that you chose, things that you haven't, and so on. So that's down at a very, very tiny scale. At a very, very macro scale, we think about mechanics too in the work. Two friends in the same week, weirdly, and the friends don't know each other, told me that I should read 2 Stuart Brand books. So, How Buildings Learn and Clock of the Long Now. And the books were written 5 years apart. So if you were just following Brand during that time, these two things would have come at you very, very separately. But because I had these two friends give me the books in the same sort of period, it was kind of like, you must read them now. It was kind of like, I was looking at the same two things in the same time period. And what I saw was, he used the same trick twice. So, I mean, a lot of you will be familiar with the shearing layers idea, which is tumbled down into web and information architecture. But when he talks about it in terms of buildings, it's like, well, the site never really changes at all of a building. The structure, the things that holds everything up, is the slowest thing to change. And then the skin on the outside might change a little bit quicker than that with refurbing and decoration. And then the stuff inside that, the services that are plumbed in, change with more regularity, all the way in to the velocity at which stuff changes on the desks and the things that people use. And he pulls the same trick in The Clock of the Long Now when he's talking about civilization, when he's talking about people. He says down here is culture, because culture is slow moving if you consider culture to be the work of all people. It takes a long time to change a culture, which is weird when you work with organizations. You go, we want to change the culture, and you go, well, you probably won't, because your leadership layer, your governance layer, will move faster than the culture layer. But if you realize that, if you can work that out, then actually you know that you have to deploy things that might change a future culture which you may or may not be a part of. That's the sort of stuff you need to do. All the way up to fashion. So fashion is the fast stuff. Looking at the two together, just the serendipity of putting these two books together in the same week made me think, well, he's used the same trick. What if they are linked? What if these things are together? So like a bike, cog and chain. So I spent far too long animating it in Keynote. So if you imagine these are the sort of like the fast and the slow layers of people, and these are the fast and slow layers of building and space and stuff. And the relationship is sort of like, it goes like this. So the fast stuff, so fashion, the fast stuff on the outside of the people stuff is the stuff that changes the speed on the desks, inside the offices, inside the houses, inside the wherever it is you happen to be. This stuff powers the fast stuff, whereas the slow stuff moves the slow stuff. Culture is the stuff that moves buildings and skins and services and so on. I timed that pretty well, you see, because you can't click on for the Keynote animation. I'm sorry you didn't see that. It was really good. And then, because I'm an economist by training, I saw this. I saw the gearbox. I basically saw a fucking chart, because that's what economists do. I'm like, that's interesting. So what we've got is this most likely relationship, so the fast stuff moves the fast stuff and the slow stuff moves the slow stuff. So for instance, the slow drift east of creative classes in London, of sort of like occupying space, has been going on for about 20 years. It's not like overnight everyone suddenly wants to work in Old Street and Shoreditch and Farringdon because that's where it's fashionable to be. It is a slow cultural thing that has done it. And the flip of that, the fast powering the fast, might be cronuts for lunch. Cronuts, what a thing, now not a thing. What a thing, now not a thing. Fashion, it just moves things through the offices very quickly. But I think the sort of like what happens now, because of the internet, we are no longer bound by that most plausible line. So fast stuff can move slow stuff, and slow stuff can move fast stuff. So with a client, we've been looking at how might lighting, how can you change what it feels like to exist in an office space based on the actions of the people that they do things that day? So how do you change the mood based on the things that happen that morning, or that hour, or that minute, so that people have a real kind of like sense of a space given the actions that are going very, very quickly? Or looking at sort of like rather than setting up big, long, new product things, we'll have to design a new factory, and we have to have a new supply chain, and so on. How can we use product futures as marketing? How can we just make one, but nowadays use the internet to make as much splash about that one thing that we've done, rather than having to go to the actual lengths of making it? And so we just use it as an idea. And then we can use it to draw all sorts of like crazy graphs that talk about Gordon Brown, the Belgians, and cultural one-upmanship, but I've not got time to talk about it. But these are both forms of mechanics. The small card stuff and the large-scale stuff, these are all mechanics. But is it right to even call them mechanics? Because they're continually moving, they're always unexpected, they're always unintended. Working out how the internet works is probably the wrong title for this talk. Because can you stare at it and see how it works? Can you stare at the internet like you can stare at all the exhibits downstairs and go, right, can we just see how this thing is working? This is what it feels like staring at the internet. It is a hair-raising experience. That's a terrible joke. I didn't even have to flag it was a terrible joke. But we want to see the patterns, Dad. We want to see the things. So this is fascinating. If you go and watch the pendulum swing, you will see countless amounts of kids surrounding it. And they know exactly what's going to happen next. Because they might well have stood there and waited for the last one to happen. And they will wait as it swings and swings and swings. And then it eventually knocks one over with a satisfying thud. And they all go, hooray! The thing that we knew is going to happen has happened again. Shall we wait until it happens again? Yay! This is what the internet is. Pattern match that, kids. You can't stare at it and work out what's going to happen next because it is an autopoietic system. It's self-defining. It's sort of like it gets increasingly complex the more that happens in it, the more that works. And the reason you can't is because people keep getting in the way. It is not a machine. It is not a machine. It is not something that you can just keep staring at again and again and watching for the thing that's going to happen again, because people are different. People keep getting in the way. And people have gone weird. Suddenly the systems which surround them, the Facebooks, the Twitter, the things that you are asking people to do and all the things that you design are giving this sort of like weird one-upmanship thing of this is the new game, we must score ourselves by the new game, the food we eat, the things we do. Even going back to the soft power 30, you go, if you set a new criteria by how countries are measured, you change the system. You have made it more complex. The things that all of those countries now do will be riven by those things that you decided to judge by in a survey and then publish. So you change the game, and any future is based on the fact that that exists and they've all read that, so things change as a result. In science, when human behavior enters the equation, things go non-linear. That's why physics is easy and sociology is hard. This is not easy. This is not just stare at it and repeat patterns. And I'm quite sure that all of us in the room have sat in the meeting with clients or partners or whoever else in the business that we work with, and they go, so what's going to happen? Can we not just use the lessons that we learned last time? Isn't the same thing not going to happen again? It's not going to happen again. It's going to be different. You can't write strategy for this shit. Strategy is dead. You just have to design appropriately. And by appropriate, it's whatever, given the circumstances that you see, is the thing that you feel is most fitting to do. After this talk, or next week or whatever, go and look at OODA loops, which were developed by Colonel Boyd of the US Air Force, but just as a way of acting. Observe, orient, decide, act. Observe, orient, decide, act. On a loop. And it's much more complex than that. But you'd say, the challenge would be, is this just tactics? And you go, no, it's not tactics. But it is actually a meta-strategy. It's a strategy of strategies. It's do whichever of the strategies you know about might work this time given the information that you have. Observe, orient, decide, act. Design with those mechanics rather than against them. Everything will keep changing, so design in systems that keep changing. Continually reassess what it is you're doing. 2 points of notice. 1, to explore some of this stuff, and given all the workshops were oversubscribed, we're going to run a bonus Sunday workshop called Kara Isu, or Empty Chair, which is about observe, orient, decide, and act. Andres is sorting it out wherever he is. Second thing, because there isn't a next speaker, I just put in a non-happy ending. Right? Because that was all positive. That was all, oh, this is a good thing to do, etc. Blah, 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 internet, lovely. I think we have to sort of take these things, go, yes, this is good. This will create new things and better things and great things. And randomness does produce that. But, back to Jean Tinguely. In the 60s, so after he's done all the sort of like the fun machines, he starts playing around with the idea of self-destructing machines. At the height of the Cold War, he's invited over to the Nevada desert by NBC News to do Study for the End of the World #2, which are essentially self-destructing machines. So machine who, through a series of sort of like chances, whatever else, are basically rigged with dynamite and explosives and will start blowing up. Because they keep changing as the complexity evolves within the whole construct of the machine, they start bumping into each other the wrong way and destroy themselves. I think we have to consider that sort of, as well as the positive side of the randomness, the negative side of the randomness exists. Would we have Trump or the anti-vaxxers without the randomness or the worlds that people create of bumping into other mental people who decide and believe what you do? And are these events, these chance happenings of randomness which we allow to survive, are they likely to be an extinction event too? Is the internet a self-destructing machine? That's a cheery thing to end on, isn't it? Thank you very much.